Aloha, Voyagers, and welcome to the Pono Quest podcast. My name is Rick Ely, and I'll be your host along with Coach Muck, where we'll be talking story with those who will inspire you to live beyond what you imagine by looking through the lens of masters. Let's dive in, shall we? Who gets married on El Capitan? I mean, who does that, right? Who trains the preacher, trains the groomsmen, trains the whole wedding procession, yeah? Who trains them and gets married, commits their life to another human being who anchors a point of depth as if hanging off the cliff, knowing that this is my last and only breath. And if this were it, this is who I am for you and for me. And what a gift to your wife and the entirety, right? So that's the man that I want to. And I say, what's your core purpose? And how do you apply that to your business life and your personal life? So what is that, Shane? What?
It's funny. Recently, a year or two ago, I was very compartmentalized in my life. I was doing indie film over here, and I was doing, climbing and mountain athletics and training and everything over here, and then completely separate. I was like, oh, I'm a professional life coach over here. And as the last few years went by, the more I realized, like I was just saying, like we're all of these things.
Yeah.
And I came upon like, oh, I'm a climber, a creator, and a coach. And I love that those are all C words. I love that there's three. I'm big on threes. But those different aspects really all come together. When you talked about the wedding, that was the unification of being a climber, a creator, and a coach. And the reason it went so well is because it was able to tap into all three of those aspects. And I realized through that, because previously I would say, oh, I have a purpose for each one of those things. But the idea of like, well, what's the singular purpose or what's the greatest purpose? And someone reminded me recently that the word priority means one. It's like the singular priority. And we tend now to talk about, oh, my priority list, which defeats the purpose of priority. You can't have a list of the most important thing. The most important thing is singular. And I really like the challenge of kind of what's the greatest purpose. And the thing that came up spontaneously, and I really encourage everyone to think about this, is not to provide answers top down. You're not using your head to fill in the blank. Like, oh, I'm trying to remember the answer. Instead, just allow the answer to come up. And what came up for me is I want to help people put their art out into the world. And if you're a creative and you want me to help you with your book or your movie or something, great. But maybe you're an athlete and your art is performing the sport or doing the thing and you just want to do it better. You really want to elevate your ability to throw the ball, hit the ball, be on the field, or just move more fluidly and more gracefully. Like that's your art. Maybe your art is being the best parent or spouse you can be, and I can help you to just live better and communicate better. And that really makes me feel a unity in the identities of being a climber, a creator, and a coach. It's helping people put their art out into the world.
Well, yeah, life is certainly art. Life are We are painting the tapestry of life with each breath. Each breath is a stroke, and we are painting it forward with the visions that we hold on to, that we cling to, that next spot in the rock. And I don't even know what that is, right? Because I've never climbed a rock, because I don't know what I don't know. Never done that, never had that experience. And I'm so grateful for your life's experience, right? The idea of being a filmmaker an indie filmmaker, no less, right? There's so much passion that goes into art that makes it to the tapestry of those that want to see. I mean, we delight, we chase after that which we want to experience. And if we're not chasing after it, we're living someone else's life.
Yeah.
And you have managed to live your life fully with each breath and everything that you're doing. And that's pretty remarkable. You're showing up in these ways to for yourself. And it's only for being there for yourself that you can really shine light on another's path. So yeah, and I don't see you seeing anyone as incomplete in any way. We're all teachable. Uh, And I heard you talk about, identifying a couple of different people that you'd like to potentially play with, right? Because life is play.
Mm.
What part of it is it that you're most passionate about? Like when you get into making a film or a documentary, what is pulling at your heartstring? Like who? I gotta say, and I'm just speaking for myself, like I'm always hungry to play with those that inspire me, that take me to the next level of being that I couldn't see before.
Mhm.
And I imagine you much the same way.
Yes, and especially with documentaries, because the last couple projects have been telling the story of like one of my climbing adventures. And as a big wall climber, most of my climbs, they're more like expedition style climb. Like, okay, I'm going to Yosemite for a week and you do one route, because it takes 5 or 6 days or something. And even most regular climbers, they don't kind of understand what expeditionary style climbing is like, because the majority of skiers or surfers, they kind of go do it on the weekends, they do it after work, they do it as part of their day. They don't go away for a week or two and really dive deep into a big ski trip or a big surf trip. And so part of the passion for me is wanting to relay the process of it. And I love the minutia of getting into, like when I work with athletes, I'm like, oh, you want to sit down with your training journal? Okay, strap in, let's go. I love this stuff. And, you don't need to do that. You can just give people concepts and be like, great, that's all you need. Move better, get fitter. But so when it comes to climbing and people say things like, you sleep on the cliff? Like, what do you mean you don't touch the ground for 5 days? How do you go to the bathroom? How do you eat? So showing people some of those systems and some of those things, and the beauty of I'm going to wake up and the first thing I see is the sunrise over the top of the mountains, 1,000 feet off the ground. And even if you're camping, yeah, you can get out of the tent, see the sunrise in the mountains, but you're on the ground. You're not up here looking down at the sun. And so you can tell people those things, but if you can show them, then they'll be like, oh wow, now I get it. And they may never want to do it, but they have the experience. And so one of the things that I really feel privileged to be able to do is say, I live here in Las Vegas, there's mountains all over the place. And most people, while they're driving around, they're sitting at a red light or something. Maybe they have the presence of mind to say, oh, I'm going to look out at the horizon and I'm going to see those mountains in the distance. And here there's no snow, but the mountains in the distance, they have snow on them right now. And maybe for a moment, they'll be like, oh, look at that mountain. There's snow up there. It must be amazing over where that mountain is. And some of the mountains here, I have been in town looking up at it, but I've also been on the mountain looking back down at town. And so I feel like I have the responsibility to say to people, hey, I've been here in town looking in the mountains like you do, but I've also been up on the top of the mountain looking back down at the town. And let me tell you what that experience is like. Let me relay the perspective shift of both being here, looking there, and being there, looking back here. And especially in a film, to be able to bring the visuals to show people like, oh, I was at the mountain and I saw a hawk up there soar for 10 minutes. I just forgot to walk and was watching the hawk just riding the wave of the air. And they go, okay, cool. But to show them that, and my favorite thing is I love to watch people watch that. And I can see the change. You know, there's a thing, you know, you said aloha, and it reminded me, this comes from the surfing culture, but, you know, they used to have these guys, the soul surfers, you know, they were living the life of a surfer all the time, whether they surfed or not. And they had that deep connection to the water, and they understood the spirit of the water. You know, it's alive, it's moving, it's changing. And in the 70s in climbing culture, that started to become a term. There are soul climbers. And whether they live in their van or they live, you know, Camp 4 in Yosemite or not, there are these people who are just in tune with the mountains, and they live from a place of, I'm a climber all the time. That's what I am. And they may not climb super hard, and they may not be super X Games rad, but they have that mindset and that spirituality and that connection. And I identify as more of a soul climber, where to me, it doesn't matter how much climbing we do or how hard it is. What matters is that I go to the mountains on a regular basis, because that's my church.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a culture of like the Airstream culture. You know, they got the streamers and dreamers. You know, if you follow that story, you know, are you a streamer or are you a dreamer? And you're living your dreams, and that's pretty cool, Shane. I can't imagine. I'd never had the thought of hanging off of a cliff and watching the sun come up before you introduced it to me. And what
Yeah.
would you say to those that stand at the door knocking for what you have, what you live, what you embody? What do you say to them? What do you say to them? That you're speaking to yourself now. Yes, you're speaking to yourself. We know this. We're talking ourselves up the mountain. We're
Yeah.
ah, what do you say to them, Shane?
The thing that came up is actually one of my favorite quotes. I'm a big fan of Henry Rollins, who I like to call a modern Renaissance man. He's been in punk bands and hosted TV shows, and he has his own book company, and he does all kinds of stuff, you know.
Cool.
And I love that he refuses to be put in a box. And I was actually on a climbing trip in Thailand, and we were reading an old climbing magazine I just found, like, in a restaurant on a bar. You know, someone had left, and I'm like, oh, climbing magazine, I'll read this. And I'm flipping through, and there was this article about the fear of falling, and how, if you just, like, it's like riding a motorcycle. There are people who have fallen off a motorcycle, and there are people who are gonna fall off a motorcycle. And if you ride a motorcycle long enough, you're gonna fall off. And lead climbing is the same. You know, you're climbing up, and eventually hold's gonna break, or something's gonna land in your face, or it's too hard, or you get too tired, and you're just gonna fall. And it's not the fall, it's the fear. So the quote from Henry Rollins at the top of the article was, don't be afraid to touch your fear. And that's one of the things I always come back to. People are standing at the doorway, like you said, I'm here, I want to change, I want somebody to help me, I want to do the new thing, I want to stop doing the old thing. And they're about to touch the handle to turn it and open the door, and they're like, well, what if? Well, what if? And they what if themselves out of opening the door.
All right.
And that's
That's
right where the point is of touch the fear, grab the handle, open the door. Yeah. What's the worst thing to happen is it doesn't work out. But it's hard, and I know, because I've been a climber. where I've been afraid of falling, and usually, not all the times, because sometimes you do a move and you fall off and it's a bad fall. But generally speaking, I will be in a position and go, this next move is impossible. There's no way to do it. There's no holds. And you stand up and you go, oh, well, now that I went up a move, I see there's a hold right here. I just couldn't see it when I was a foot lower.
Wow.
And now all the fear and all the difficulty and all the what ifs in my head are all instantly negated because they don't actually exist. But I thought they did based on the position I was in.
Perception. But you have to take action, reaching out for that fear to see the next, and it's like leaning in at the edge, at the gate of what you really don't want to touch. I Yeah, and that happens every day in so much of life, and it's a dance, right? I mean, what a beautiful opportunity to dance eloquently with the ones that we, invite into our spaces. Myself here, and
Well, I'm super psyched, and I really want to say that I didn't know even the word Pono until we met recently. But as soon, and this is where the resonance comes in, because I was like, oh, Pono, what is that? Oh, it's a Hawaiian term. Oh, what does it mean? It means being in harmony with yourself, others, and the environment. And I was like, yes. Like, I didn't know that that term even existed. And you told me, and I was like, oh, I know this thing.
the first time I heard Pono, like I was living in Maui, and I mean, I'd heard Pono a lot, but the first time that it anchored to me, the word Pono, um, I was with a couple of fishermen. I was looking at buying a boat in Maui, and we were hauling some gear. And one of the guys that I was carrying some stuff with, he was a deckhand to the captain. He stubbed his toe. He stubbed his toe while we were carrying, and I stopped. I said, please forgive me. I said, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. He says, he was hurt. His toe was hurt, and I thought, oh man, am I to blame? Am I a cause? And he said, nah, bro, we're Pono. We're Pono, bro. We're Pono. Nah, bro, we're Pono. And I'm like, that was a release. We're Pono, man. We're all right. This isn't your fault. I own this. I'm right with me. Yeah, I'm hurt, but we're Pono. And this quest for being Pono for my partner Steve was, his wife grew up in Lanai. His kids they're from there, right? I mean, that's their native home, and every time they would come back to the mainland, he would try to bring that feeling of harmony and balance back to back to the mainland here. And our cultures are so different. The Hawaiians really do. So we're a couple of haoles, right? Trying to be Pono. And that's the reality. I mean, we could go to Maui and we could go to any of the other islands, and I'm a haole, and that's all right. But I'm striving to be Pono. I mean, their native culture, they didn't know disease. Dis-ease is something that we've manufactured. Dis-ease, our bodies are not in homeostasis. We're not in peace. We're generating something out of fear and belief in something that is significantly less than who we really are. And that ideology of Pono and true responsibility and a peace of harmony that is the very breath of life. That is a true responsibility, and it's an aim. You're a Pono. I'm grateful to get to know you, honestly, and thank you for letting me share, from where I'm coming. I know I got a lot to learn. I know I got a lot to learn, and I want to pay attention to masters like you. So if you will grace me with these questions, I know it's just kind of off the cuff, but what actions or activities do you do consistently that require courage or the ability to overcome internal resistance?
Well, I have a practice of some kind of daily movement. And I was trained through the Strong First background. So predominantly that's hard style kettlebells or hard style body weight training. And I like to envelop all of these hacks like all together. So it's training outside, barefoot, in the cold, with the bells, first thing, getting the natural light. And quite often, some of those things are a challenge because it's cold, or I'm tired, or the bells are heavy today, or I just did something yesterday. So even if the day, the movements, the weight, the reps, the sets, all the minutia, that's not really the hard thing. I had a coach when I was younger who used to say, starting something isn't hard. Everyone can start something. Day 10 isn't hard. What's hard is 110. Day 510. It's doing it continuously. He's like, that's what's hard. And every time you have something to go do, whether it's a class, a day of work, you're going to go run with your buddy, you're going to show up to the gym, for a moment, even if you don't notice, there's going to be a part of you that says, it's hard, I don't want to do it.
Hmm.
And every time you choose to do it, you're doubling down on your resilience to then accept and work through the other things that are hard. And so for me, I don't work out, I train, I practice, I develop the skill set. And for me, I am learning how to be a better person because I'm learning how to use kettlebells better on a daily basis. And when it's hard, that's when I go, let me pay more attention to this thing. And that's a good reminder for me to pay attention to other things in my life that are also hard.
I like that. You train. You train. That's what you do. All
Vocabulary to me is very difficult, and I would encourage people when it comes to things like that, let's shift from working out to practicing or training.
right. Hmm.
Let's shift from have tos to want tos or shoulds to coulds.
I like it. What do you believe is your superpower?
I'm a master at creating small teams.
Hmm.
And my kind of ideal is that kind of couple people up to maybe 20 and making these kind of like, okay, squad, okay, team, we're going to go do all this awesome stuff now because it's us.
Okay. So a master at creating small teams and accomplishing the goal, such as like the climbing expedition. That's
Yes.
something that you personally love, you're passionate about, you want to go do up to a team of 20. Let's everybody raise their hand. Shane's going to lead the team to El Capitan or whatever other mountain that you think you can climb. Shane knows that he's the realist. He's got the experience. He's the one that you want leading the charge on the team, and he's going to get you and your team there. He's got the experience to do it. Okay. What would you consider your greatest weakness then? And so in consideration that it's your greatest weakness, how do you use it to further your vision? So your greatest weakness, and then how do you use that to further your vision?
My greatest weakness is I have a tendency to fall into more is more.
Hmm.
And that comes out of being a cardio warrior for way too long when I was younger. And more miles was more success. But as my coach used to tell me, all of your best efforts were at practice.
Hmm.
You showed up every practice going as hard as you could. And then at the next race, you were either injured or exhausted or sick. And it took me years to learn it's much more useful for me to save my best effort for the day, whether that's training smart so I can have all the energy and be healthy for the expedition, or showing up to the conference and I'm fully energized and prepared instead of exhausted, and or I didn't show up at all because I was sick or something. And so that perspective is super helpful for me when I work with people, because I know what it's like to redline and have no sleep and have no patience and have poor communication and fly off the handle because you're angry all the time. I understand doing too much. And I think keeping that in mind helps me to connect with people, understand, and kind of meet them where they are, instead of saying, oh, I don't do that anymore. I'm all smart and stuff now. I'm all even. I'm all balanced. I'm like, no, I deal with that on a continuous basis. And it's my default, almost like a societally acceptable addiction.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Well, that's that. My brain goes off into a million other directions at times. Staying focused for longer than 7 seconds is a tremendous feat for me. What I heard you saying is it's more is more was your weakness, but you've reframed this into being a powerful asset, showing up empowered, practicing. That's your master practice. You're showing up. You're showing up empowered doesn't mean I'm better than. It just means you're empowered, and so you
Yes.
can show light on that. Yeah, I look. We wouldn't even be having this conversation if you weren't that. That's the truth, man. Yeah, look, I don't play with people that just sit there and shine the light in people's eyes and say, "Hey, I'm better than. I'm better than." No, look, I don't have time for that. Neither does anybody else. We're all tired of that. Everybody wants to deal with people that are authentic, that are real. We can cut through the BS and just get down to the look. What is it you want to experience? If you want to experience going to the top of a mountain, a real mountain, and climbing with it, is somebody yeah, who's done it, who's going to get you there. All right. Well, I understand that weakness. One question: how important is your inner circle?
It's extremely important. I think that that's the most important person, or most important aspect to any person. And one of my courses, actually, I start off the first week is called Team Together, Everyone Accomplishes More. And helping to have people understand, because I think it's very common for people to feel like when they want to make a change in their life, whether it's starting or stopping something, they have to do it all by themselves. It's like, you already right now on day one, you have a team. You just don't necessarily recognize them as being your teammates. And that could be your family, your spouse, your coworkers, your friends, the other people in the class. You're not going through it alone. And the more you can consciously and with awareness make choices of who is and isn't on your team, maybe they're the person that you can call at 3 a.m. Maybe when everything goes sideways, you're like, I only have one person I can call right now. Great. You know exactly who's on your team. And it's as important to know who's on the team as it is to know who's not on the team. And there may be people in your life who are not helping you at all. It's great to be their friend or have them be. We all have the family that we create in our life and the family we're born into. And some of those people we get a chance to choose and sometimes we don't. But making those conscious choices of who's going to be on the inner circle, who's going to be there no matter what, who can I rely on, and who can rely on me. And just like you were talking earlier about, you feel like, oh, I'm lucky to be able to learn from these people. People like you make people like me better, because if we didn't have eager students who are super switched on, then we could just say, well, I'll just recite this thing because I've memorized it and I'll just keep saying it. No, I have to sharpen the blade before every slice. I have to come prepared. I have to be dialed. I have to be on. I have to constantly be evolving and seeking and creating and building so that I can bring the absolute best from right now, because you are challenging and inspiring me to do that.
Well, I'm looking forward to your documentary, man. I'm looking forward to dialing into some of your cinema. This is stuff that I'm starting to pay attention to as an influencer, recognizing that, you know what, we do have influence, and you might as well be a proactive creator and create the world that you want to live in, be that which it is you want to experience. Shane is modeling that. Yeah, thank you for modeling that. I'm really looking forward to your courses, to diving in deeper to playing. Uh, I have no idea if I'll ever go to the top of a mountain and hang off the cliff and watch the sunrise. That's my truth. But I do know one thing. I know the guy that could get me there. I know the guy that could get me there. I know the guy that I could put my life in your hands and trust you to get me there. That's Pono, right? That's Pono. What's your definition of Pono? How do you define Pono?
Well, I keep going back to Yosemite. It's church, as I mentioned. It's where I got married. It's where I had all these life-defining changes. And my big wall guru has lived and worked in Yosemite for 20 plus years, and he has such a connection to that place. And he's super spiritual guy, and he's one of those people that, like, when you're near him, it's almost like he's just radiating peace.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, Eric, thank you for standing near me. I needed this. But we were sleeping out on a cliff one night, and in the dark, stars are all over the place, and we were chit-chatting about things. And like, I don't know, 10 minutes goes by. And he said something along the lines of how by being in a place like Yosemite, especially Yosemite Valley where El Cap and Half Dome are, you're interacting with these trees and these cliffs that are thousands of years old. And they're just giving off all this wisdom, thousands of years worth of wisdom. And I had never thought about that before. Obviously, those trees are 20, 50 feet around. They're hundreds of feet tall. Like, they're old. Oh, El Cap has been there for 5,000 years or 10,000 years. Okay, it's old. But I never thought about, every time I climb, my body, my hands and feet are pressing up against these thousands of years of wisdom. And to me, that's Pono. I'm there in this moment, moving, breathing, interacting with thousands of years of wisdom. And every time I leave, I'll spend months. Oh, I can't wait till next year when I get to go back to Yosemite for a week.
I'm
And then I come back and I have months of pausing and being in that moment still.
this sounds like a very spiritual event. And mind, body, spirit, right? I mean, we talk about being balanced. I heard you say it felt like a very spiritual event, being Pono. Is being Pono a spiritual event?
I believe so, yes. And I would say to go back to that soul surfer, soul climber, you could be the slowest jogger ever. You don't have to be a crazy Olympic runner. But if you're just like in it and you wake up and you're like, the sun is on me, I'm moving in oxygen, like you're in church.
Yeah.
A teeter-totter, you can balance it. You get the right size people, you can even kind of move it, so like a parent and their kid could be on it together. You just kind of slide it over so the fulcrum of it, they can still both go up and down. You imagine putting two kids on a teeter-totter and just telling them to just balance it. They're not gonna have any fun. They're not doing anything. They're balanced. They're perfectly solitary, singular, stationary. What is fun on a teeter-totter? You go down, I go up. I go down, you go up and down, back and forth. That's the balance. When I go down, I get to watch you be like, I'm up here, I'm having the time of my life. And then I push off the ground going, now I get to go. And then they go down and they get to watch me go up and smile and be like, look how high I am. It's both. It's the high and the low. It's the up and the down. It's also that partnership. That's the balance. Teeter-totters aren't designed to be in the middle. They're designed to go as high and low as possible, back and forth. And you can't live on bread alone, but you probably could for a period of time, just like you aren't going to live on bread alone for a period of time. So it's the cycling through of these things. It's the seasons. It's the, like you said, the sun rises and sets. Imagine if the sun just went up one day and then that was it.
Haven't missed a day yet. Who are you looking to? 5 years, 10 years down the road. Who are you looking to be? What's that vision of you? And who inside of your inner circle are you paying attention to get to that? Is that even a valid question?
I think it's super valid. And I think that one of the things, it's funny, you were talking earlier, and I hadn't had this word come up in a long time, but when I was in the service, when we're doing map work, they talk about shooting an azimuth and a back azimuth, which is your line of travel. And it's really important to do both those things because you need to know where you're going and you need to know where you came from. Because quite often in the military, you got to get back to where you came from, and sometimes quickly. And knowing where you're going and where you came from are both equally important. And being able to know as you're moving to adjust to that and say, because sometimes the road isn't straight, and where's home from here? Where are we going now from where we are? Because we had to go around this thing or what have you. And so I think looking forward, but also looking back is incredibly important to say, where am I going and where was I before? And as important as it is to have goals and have a future, and this is what I want to accomplish, this is where I want to be, this is who I want to be, it's also really important to recognize, oh, last year I wanted to do this and I did. Like, I'm doing stuff. I'm in the process. And that's why I call it training or practice. Because I'm practicing not only the hard skills of picking up kettlebells, but I'm practicing all of these life skills. I'm honing the blade, I'm sharpening it every day. And so one of the things that I would say is I spent a lot of my life thus far creating, but not necessarily broadcasting.
Hmm.
And my next couple of years, I really want to focus on taking the things that I've created and finding a way to give them to the people who want them so that they can be of value to those people. And that's where I want to be in 5 years, is the person that people can say, I'm so glad you made that movie so I could see it. Or I'm so glad you made that course so I could take it. Or whatever it is. I'm so glad you put together the Pono quest to Yosemite so I could attend.
Bro, I'm so thankful just to be in your presence. That I get to learn and grow from you. Thank you for leading the way. Thank you for sharing everything that all of your life's experiences and the processes that you've gone through to get to where you are today. And we'll make sure we put some links up, get all of your links up so people can find your courses, find out more about you, can reach out to you personally. You're very accessible. We're we're all accessible to the right people with the right intentions, and and we're all playing at such a high level that we know that our intentions will follow us. So we're at cause 100%. We've got safe sandboxes to play in. It really is nice, isn't it, to know that it's a safe sandbox, to know that the entire universe is conspiring to bless you and those you dearly love, that it's chasing after you, that you can't stop the momentum of
Mm-hmm.
of it chasing you. And this is the part that I'm so looking forward to, the cinema aspect and what you've created, cultivated, and what you're creating. um, is there a specific community where you've been pouring out your heart into, a community of people that you've been giving things to, that where people can find you, you know? Is there something like that? You have a tribe that you're in, or so that people can come to you. Where do you want them to go, Shane?
The probably easiest thing is go to my website, shaneborza.com. But if people want to see a lot of my work, they can look me up on YouTube. And I've got trailers to the climbing movies and kind of
Do
behind the
you have a
scenes web series and all kinds of stuff, both for coaching and movies and all kinds of things. And I think that's also a great place because then people get a chance to see my face and hear my voice and feel like they're interacting with me instead of just reading some info on the website. But if they want to reach out to me, contact me, schedule a call, go to the website, all that stuff is there. And I would be psyched to hear from more people from the Pono tribe and connect and help them in any way because I really believe that together everyone accomplishes more. And we're going to accomplish more together, but I can also help them accomplish more if we're a team together.
Yeah, you're a beautiful being of light. You really are, Shane. I'm so glad that our paths have crossed. We have Mr. Clifford Starks to thank.
Yes.
That guy is nonstop. He's relentless, unstoppable, that guy. Oh, Shane, this is just the beginning. And I just wanted to thank you. Um, any last closing words for the audience?
Well, I was going to say that I'm psyched, which reminds me that that's one of my 3 life tenets, which is follow your psych. So figure out, if you don't know what it is, what's the thing you're psyched about, and follow it. Follow your psych.
All right. Well, aloha, and we will see you on the inside. Aloha.
Thanks, everybody.